I was used to taking on personal and professional challenges and crushing them. So I was shocked when a year of trying to get pregnant passed with no luck. So I started fertility treatments, which were emotionally exhausting. And after another year of disappointment, I got pregnant. And the first trimester was a breeze. So my husband, David, and I were optimistic heading into the 12-week ultrasound. But the grainy images revealed that the pregnancy wasn't viable. And so I was given medication to go home and have a miscarriage. It was springtime, and while I might not have been fertile, my garden certainly was. The irises were blooming, the pea pods had grown fat in my vegetable garden, and I was picking the peas when I noticed some empty terracotta pots. And I picked them up and I carried them over to my brick chimney. And with tears streaming down my face, I hurled those pots at the brick and they exploded. A few months went by and I decided I wasn't going to give up. And a year after the miscarriage, I got pregnant again. When Joshua was born, he was everything we could have wanted. A sunny baby who was a good sleeper and a great eater. Like many new parents, I read books with chipper titles like Happiest Baby on the Block. And I decided that Joshua was going to be, so these books, they told you advice, and some of their advice would be things like, when your baby gets older, feed them a variety of different types of food. So I decided that Joshua was going to be the most cosmopolitan, foodie baby ever. And David would bring home these packets of organic baby food, and I would kind of poo-poo them because I felt like they didn't have enough interesting textures or flavors. So I went out and I bought a hand-cranked food mill to make my own super baby food. And I would take fruits and vegetables and I would puree them up, and then I would spice them subtly with a little bit of freshly ground cardamom or a few drops of vanilla extract. And Joshua would be sitting in his high chair and he would see me coming towards him with his favorite foods. And he would start squealing with excitement. He'd kind of start bopping up and down in his high chair. And perhaps smugly, I chalked up this baby, our easy baby, to me, yet again, triumphing over a difficult situation. This baby who was so full of joy and sweetness was the child that I deserved, because I believed that good things came to people who worked hard and persevered. When Joshua was 18 months old, I got a phone call. It was his preschool teacher, and she said, "We need to talk about Joshua's behavior. He was so hyperactive that he couldn't sit still at circle time. He refused to follow the directions of the teachers and disrupted the entire class. But the biting was the worst. He bit the other kids, he bit the teachers, he even bit his own hand and arm until scar tissue started to form. And the biting got so excessive that David and I would actually be relieved to receive a phone call from the preschool reporting that Joshua had fallen down and gotten a minor injury, rather than the phone calls that were, "Pick him up now. He's bitten a kid for the second time today." Over the course of several years, Joshua was invited not to come back to multiple preschools. And things were difficult at home as well. We'd had our daughter, Rachel, by that point. and I was nervous that he might get really wild around a newborn. One day, Joshua and my mom were playing together in the kids' room, and he got really out of control. And by accident, he ended up hitting my mom, bam, right in the face. And my mom, kind of yelped in shock. And I heard the noise, and I rushed into the kids' room, and I ordered Joshua to apologize to my mom, but he refused to do it. And I got furious, and I started yelling at him. And that's when Joshua took Raph, his beloved blue stuffed giraffe, and he hurled him into the hallway, and he yelled, "Get rid of Raph, Mom. I don't want him anymore." Later, I was talking to David, and I asked him, "What's happening?" And David looked at me and he said, "Joshua feels bad about himself, but he's 4, and he doesn't know how to express these things any other way." And I didn't know how to help him. When Joshua was in pre-kindergarten, a little bit before kindergarten, he underwent a psychological evaluation. The diagnosis was a laundry list of problems. It was attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, sensory processing abnormalities, fine motor delays. The diagnosis was devastating to me. I started having trouble sleeping at night. I would lay awake and ponder what could have happened to my sweet baby. Was it the fact that I put him in daycare to finish my PhD? Was it the coffee that I drank or that hot tub I sat in when I was pregnant that had warped his brain? Was I just a shitty mom? Because my image of myself as a good mom had started to crack. We started Joshua on a range of interventions. We took him to pediatric occupational therapy. We hired a shadow. This is a woman that would supervise him one-on-one at the preschool. We left our jobs in the middle of the day, every single day, to pick him up early from preschool. And all of these things helped a little, but they weren't nearly enough. For the first time in my life, there was something major that I couldn't just fix through a combination of brain power or will or effort. It all came to a head in a hotel room in Texas. I was alone with both kids, and during this trip, I'd come down with a really nasty cold, and my voice was gone from the laryngitis, and so was my patience. And my children were driving me crazy. Joshua said one nasty, disrespectful remark too many, and I lost it. I lunged at my small child, and I grabbed his chin with my fingernails, harder than I had intended. And my fingernails broke his skin and left bloody crescents on his face. He started to cry, and I looked into his big hazel eyes, and I could see his confusion. I was someone who was supposed to protect him, and I had betrayed that trust. My image of myself as a good mom shattered into a million pieces. The hotel room incident was a turning point for me. I loved Joshua so much, and I knew that for his sake, for my family's sake, and for my sake, something major had to be done. So I swallowed my pride and enrolled in a parent coaching program to be delivered by a social worker. In my mind, social workers were not for parents like me. I always took my parenting seriously, goddammit. I didn't think that I needed a social worker to show me how to be a good parent. And that's when our social worker, Jatana, came in. Jatana came to my house and conducted play-based therapy with Joshua and me for 45 minutes every other week for 7 months. And in the play, Joshua was supposed to take the lead. He took me on fantastic adventures. We would sail around the world with Admiral Raff on ships built from Duplos. And we would conduct military training exercises with his army of plastic dinosaurs. One day, Jatana came over, and it had been a really hard day. And I told her how tough things had been and how discouraged I felt. And Jatana looked at me, and she said, "Suzanne, you are a good mom." Now, I've received many personal and professional accolades in my life. And so I was surprised at how much her words meant to me. You see, I'd gotten to the point that when I looked at Joshua, all I saw were his problems. Jatana helped me find my parenting mojo so I could look at Joshua and appreciate his infectious spirit, his boundless curiosity, his devotion to his little sister, Rachel. I realized that I'd been parenting like a carpenter making a chair. I would measure out the pieces of wood and cut them precisely to just the right length, and then I'd assemble each piece at perfect angles, and then I'd paint them with the color that I had chosen, and I would have complete control over how the finished product would turn out. But I realized that parenting is more like gardening. In my garden, I may put up a fence to keep out the deer, or water the beds in the dry season, or spread fertilizer in the spring for extra nutrition. But how and when the plants grow and bloom and bear fruit is ultimately out of my control. You see, a gardener's job is to provide care and wait patiently, lovingly, for whatever the future might bring. These days, Joshua is doing much, much better through a combination of medication and therapy. But nighttime can still be tough. His medications are wearing off, and we are all tired at the end of the day. One evening, not too long ago, Joshua got really wild and rambunctious, and he was mouthing off and being generally unpleasant. And I got frustrated, and I yelled at him just to behave. And he started crying, and he ran up to his room. And he took Raph, and he threw Raph into the hallway and said, "Get rid of Raph, Mom." I walked up to the top of the stairs, and I looked at Raph on the floor for what felt like a long time. Joshua was lying in his bed, refusing to look at me. And so I picked up Raph and I started army crawling with him on the floor. And I army crawled all the way over to Joshua's bed. And then I lifted up Raph slowly to face Joshua. And I started working Raph's head like a puppet. "Joshua," I said, "it's me, Raph. Please don't get rid of me." And Joshua turned and lifted his head, and he looked at Raph. And I saw my beautiful boy, the one I had wanted so badly and always had, even if I had lost my way with him over the years. And I continued, "You're going to go to bed now, and tomorrow you're going to try hard, and you're going to have a better day. I love you, buddy. And Joshua looked at me, and he let out a big sigh. And he said, I love you too, Mom. Thank you.
Suzanne Minton.